We may with more successful hope resolve to wage by force or guile eternal war, irreconcilable to our grand foe, who now triumphs, and in the excess of joy, sole reigning, holds the tyranny of heaven. When imagining the figure of Satan in Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost, the devil's defense of morality is not the first thing that comes to mind. Power, malice, wrath, revenge, and unmitigated ambition. These are, the unanimous assumption is, Satan's essential characteristics, and any divergence from this time-honored position is liable to fork the public brow and give way to a broad array of disapproving hoots. But such a myopic and frankly tedious reading commits an injustice against the subtleties demanded by the art of reading itself, the critical analysis, to, dare I say it, ethics, and perhaps most importantly, to the complex nuances that Milton breathed into this Titan protagonist. Once prepared to shed these tired assumptions, the inevitable question is forced into view. How can anything of moral worth spring from the radix malorum, that is, from the supposed root of all evil? But not only does it, inscribed on these golden pages, it does so single-handedly. The first remarkable declaration made by the fallen angel, which offers a way into this apparent ethical conundrum, is that of God as tyrant. Proclaiming amidst the multitudes of his banished rebel angels from the pits of hell, the mighty fallen cries, "Is this the region? This the soil, the clime? This the seat that we must change for heaven? This mournful gloom for that celestial light? Be it so, since he who now is sovereign can dispose and bid what is right." And with this, in one grand motion, Satan proclaims that divine rule issues not from right, but from power alone, and that the occupancy of that seat confers on whatever monarch holds tenure the prerogative of contriving law, which here, of course, inescapably means morality. In Plato's dialogue, the Euthyphro, Socrates poses a question which has come to be known as the Euthyphro dilemma, and it is formulated like so. Is the pious loved by the gods because it is pious, or is it pious because it is loved by the gods? Or put another way, is murder, say, a sin because God deems it so, or does God deem it so because it is a sin? Milton's Satan has seen here, with acute vision and an adept intellectual dialectic, the arbitrary nature of God's rule and law, the cerebral and visceral grounds of his own rebellion. On the contrivance of this divine law, Satan levies the implicit critique as, but according to what? Desire, whim, amusement, caprice, perhaps some ungodly amalgam of all of these, but whatever it is, he sees that it cannot issue from anything transcending the Godhead, for then why call him God? The banal position of the fashionable monotheisms in regards to the origin of rights is that they are God-given. But if this is true, Milton's Satan deduces, correctly, that God's right to rule must then necessarily be self-conferred. Pronounced in another inflection, Satan establishes with heavy artillery that the divine sovereign's rule is in fact illegitimate, instituted by sheer strength and his compulsions alone. Farthest from him is best, whom reason hath equalled, force have made supreme above his equals. Now, it would seem a dubious proposition that Milton used his Satan as a mouthpiece for his own explicit ideas. Indeed, Milton was of the faithful. However, drawing on modern contemporary philosophy, science, and psychology, we, perhaps, are privy to insights that Milton in all likelihood missed. And one of these is that which George Orwell calls doublethink, which he defines as the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. And it is intriguing and suggestive to watch Milton's special brand of this conceptual contortionism at play throughout this undeniable magnus opus. What we do know is that Milton was reinterpreting biblical stories with spectacular imagination and prescience, while also inadvertently commenting on his own zeitgeist as a Protestant Christian embroiled in the religio-political struggles of his times, namely the English Civil Wars, the trial and execution of King Charles I, the birth of the English Commonwealth, the restoration of Charles II, and the restoration of the Church of England. A fertile milieu. Here again, the perceptive reader is confronted with the intellectual depredations of religion and its surrogates, the struggle of reason and secularism against faith and autocracy, from which vantage point Paradise Lost is a sort of unwitting manuscript of that struggle, as in his own time, Milton was engaged in what he himself knew to be a battle against tyranny. In the standard scholarly biography of the recently late Barbara K. Lewalski's The Life of Milton, Lewalski writes that these years were tumultuous for Milton as they were for England, which was first convulsed by a civil war that was atrociously destructive of human life, and then governed by a regime that never achieved the one thing indispensable to a government if it is to last: legitimacy. Diving into the work and following their Stygian debate as to their next move, after Satan's generals have made their positions clear, Milton, commenting on Satan, says, "For whence but from the author of all ill could spring so deep a malice?" As if divine tyranny and totalitarianism were no ill to begin with. And here we see Milton's orthodox tendencies. But as with any author of great fiction, their characters ultimately take on a life of their own, often voicing ideas which may be lying just below the conscious horizons of their creators. How apprehended these declarations were in Milton is an ambiguous premise to resolve at best. All we have as an immediate source is the text. And early on in this text, Satan, crying out from the depths of hell, declares, "What matter where, if I still be the same and what I should be, all but less than he whom thunder have made greater. Here at least we shall be free. The Almighty have not built here for his envy." And then, a few lines later, reaffirming his position and embracing the pride that was long denied him, he makes one of the most well-known pronouncements in all of English literature. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. To be free. To be free from what Mammon, one of the fallen angels, later describes as the easy yoke of servile pomp. And though despised and scorned throughout centuries, these figures, as animated in this work, reveal, with little equivocation, the greatest instinct that any modern liberal democracy must possess, if any semblance of enlightenment is to be attained, and that instinct is the will to freedom. This freedom includes, in fact must include above all else, the freedom to think. The best known and most refined formulation of the problem of evil, that is, the irreconcilability of an all-good, all-powerful God with a world replete with evil, is attributed to the Greek philosopher Epicurus, which already obliterated any hope of a theistic, let alone a monotheistic argument for the existence of God, long before Christianity had attempted to arrogate power from Judaism. The Epicurean formulation is as follows: Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? It has long been established that the idea of an omnipotent and simultaneously omnibenevolent God is one that is poorly conceived, and simple logical operations demonstrate that such a God cannot exist. Of course, it does not necessarily follow that one has to abandon the idea of a God altogether for this reason, and reason it is. But what it does mean, at the very least, is that God is stripped of either infinite power or infinite compassion, omnipotence or omnibenevolence. He must relinquish one of these.